Never let it be said that I'm immune to peer pressure. Anyway, so in the last programming video that I made, a lot of people, according to my analytics, were skipping to the API section. And while everything I said in that API section was correct, I think I can teach it a lot better than I did. Or at least in a little bit more depth while still keeping it kind of general. So let's get right into it. An API is what happens when, instead of showing someone a web page, your server gives them data, receives data from them, or runs some logic and sends back the result. If that still feels abstract, give me 2 minutes. I built something extremely simple to show you exactly what this looks like. I have made a very basic project. This project is using Flask, which is my server, PostgreSQL, which is my database, and Tailwind, which is what I'm using to make this look pretty without having to spend much time at all actually making stuff look good. So this is my app.python. In my server, I've defined a few different routes. A route is just an address. When someone connects to that address, this block of code runs. That's the key idea. I control what happens at every address on my server. It can show a web page, it can send data, it can change data, it can run setup code. It can do almost anything. The route just decides which code runs. To start, here is the most basic route. When someone goes to this address, I return an HTML page. That is traditional web behavior. Nothing special. But inside this page, I'm doing something different. I'm calling someone else's API. When this page loads, it connects to this URL right here. That URL doesn't return a web page. It returns structured data. Somewhere, someone has a database of Pokemon. They created a route that says, if someone connects here, send back information about this Pokemon. That's it. There is no cloud magic, there is no mystery system. It's just their server deciding what to send when someone connects to a specific address. Now, let's look at what that data actually is. When I hit that Pokemon URL directly, this is what comes back. Alright, watch. There you go. So, we did a quick look for Pikachu. So you can see it has a block labeled stats, and then within this block are all of the stats of Pikachu. It also has a bunch of different links to the different sprites in each game, as well as the species, the pass types, and basically all the information you could ever have about a Pikachu. It's just structured text, keys and values, name, ID, height, weight, types. It might look a little bit messy, but it's very predictable. And in my code, I'm just picking out the fields I care about and mapping them to what I want to display on the page. I'm grabbing the data, choosing the parts I want, and rendering it. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know how to connect to this API? How do I know what the route is called, or what data it sends back? Here's the cool part. You don't. APIs are completely custom-made by whoever built the program. They decide what the routes are called, what parameters they accept, what format the data comes back in, and what fields exist. There is no universal naming system. That's why API documentation is so important. To use an API, you have to look at the documentation. If it's not documented, it is basically unusable. No, it is unusable. Just as a little bonus tip, if you're using AI tools to help you code, you should almost always paste in the documentation, assuming that the tool can't just look it up itself. Because without documentation, you're guessing, and APIs are not guessable. Now that you've seen me use someone else's API, let's make our own. I built a very simple page. All it does is list animals. Behind the scenes, that list is just a single table in my database. What we're going to do is make it possible to get this list as data and add a new animal to it without having to make those changes from the server that is hosting that code. In this case, my computer. So right away, when I open this animals page, something interesting happens. It doesn't work. And that's because I never actually made a table in my database for animals. I could go into my database and manually create this table. That would fix the problem. But instead, I made a route that runs the code that creates this table for me. This is my init route, and I made it specifically to show you guys that your routes can run whatever code you want them to. What this does is it inserts 3 animals into my list, cat, dog, and capybara, and it creates the table. Now let's watch it work because it's actually kind of cool. So here we go, /init. Database initialized. Now we go back and we reload. Here it is. That route that you just saw ran setup logic on my server. This is also why it's very important that you really keep track of what your routes do, because right now, anybody could run this. Right now, the animals page is just a normal web page. But I also created a route that returns the animals list as raw data. That route is /API/animals. When I go to that address, instead of getting a web page, I get JSON. And because my rule for myself is I don't just throw new terms at you, JSON is just what we call any data that is structured like this. So this here is JSON. And we pretty print it. This is what it would actually look like if I was trying to make this human readable somewhere. Anyway, this is just the data. There's no styling, no layouts, no buttons. That's the read part of the API. I also created another route that lets me add a new animal. The web page is just one way to interact with this, but any program or any device that knows these URLs could use them if this site was live. Right now, the server is running on my computer, but I'm going to temporarily expose it so that another device can connect to it. So here you can see my Flask server is running. You can also see the error from when the animals table did not exist. We just close out of that real quick, and we run it like this instead. And now, if I can just show you, here is this same exact web page running on my phone. And for those who are worried I'm doxing myself, this is a local IP. It is completely harmless for someone to see that. What you don't want people getting is your public IP. But anyway, it takes a bit to load. But here you can see I have the exact same data. Now, instead of using this form on the web page to add another animal, actually, let me just show that it works by, we'll add a lion, capital L. So there you go. Apparently I go to lowercase, but there you go. And if we go back here real quick and refresh, you'll see that my phone added a lion. But now what if I wanted to make it possible for somebody to use code to add a new animal into my system? Well, now I need to make an API that can add an animal. Well, I've actually already made a route for that. So here we go. Now if I go to /add/name, we can programmatically insert a new animal into this list. These little brackets here represent a placeholder. So to use this, we have to do /add, and then we can type in whatever name we want. And this is the code that runs it. So on my phone again, you can see I'm at the URL, and we're just going to do /add/tiger. And here you go, showing that we're doing /add/tiger. Oops, sorry about the glare. I can refresh it as much as I want. The second that I hit enter, on my phone, it says added tiger. And now when we refresh, there's a tiger. That route runs and it adds in the animal that we wanted. There's no button, there's no interface, it is just an address that runs code. A lot of the forms that you fill out on websites are just doing something like this behind the scenes. They're hitting routes, sending data, running code, but they use a fancy form wrapper so that it's easier for people to interact with it. Developers don't need to do that. That is everything you really need to know about APIs. Of course, you can go much deeper. You'll hear terms like HTTP, POST, GET, authentication, headers, all of that. But they all start here. A set of routes that let other systems interact with your server. Someone defined addresses. Those addresses run code. That's an API. Thanks for watching. Alright, well, time for the outro. Editing this is genuinely going to be a nightmare. But the most important thing to keep in mind is my phone here was a placeholder for any computer in the world. Any computer in the world would have been able to type in that route and added in a new animal, a new whatever, to the server that I made. Similarly, any computer could have gone to my URL and gotten this list of animals in the same way that I got that list of Pokemon. Whether you're hitting Google's API, Amazon's API, or just an API for some local project that you're trying to work in, this is what it is at its core. A developer just defining some routes that give you some data, or let you send them data. Now, where would you see this in real life? Well, there's a project that I worked on when I was first starting to program that is a great example of when this type of programming comes up. So I was doing work for a sports store, and what this sports store would do is they would order massive bulk orders of like matching jerseys for high school teams. Well, the company that I was working for at the time initially created the store for them that let people buy these orders, and they also created a back-end PO system that let them manage and close these orders on their own side. Fast forward 15 years later, and they want to move to a new front-end store, a new place for their customers to be able to buy stuff. But they wanted to keep their old PO system because it had all the data and they just really liked it. That's where I came in. I had to make a system that let their new store people send the data to our PO system. On their end, they created a webhook, which I defined in my previous video. And what that webhook would do is when these specific people closed out an order, it would send the order to me, where I'd process it. So I made an API that they could post to, and that API would take the data and store it in our database so that it would show up in the PO system. Stuff like that is where you will most often see APIs working. Anyway, yeah, I made this because I felt like the previous video that I made really did help a lot of people, more than I expected, and I kind of wanted to do a follow-up to it just because if it's really that confusing and you find that me doing this helps you, then, I'm happy to do it. These are typically very easy videos for me to make. Probably not this one because jumping back and forth so much between my phone and my computer and my script was a little bit of a nightmare, but generally, they're easy to make. I hope this brought some clarity. I'm going to try and make a video like this a weekly thing. Next up, I plan on talking a bit about JavaScript, because I feel there are many people who get confused on why JavaScript can do so much, but it isn't a back-end language, and like what the difference is there. As always, thank you so much for watching. I've got a bunch more fun game-related videos coming out soon. I might even double post because I've got 2 videos kind of done at the same time. But that's enough rambling. Until next time, see ya. So I already wrote it out, but we're just going to add that right here. So very simple. To hit this route, we do /add/name. And these brackets here denote this as a placeholder. I wasn't